So the test is a continuous book
Yeah.
of sharing the fact that it's okay. New levels, new devil, but confront those devils. Don't run away from them.
Push through them. Push through your pain, chapter 1.
Or navigate yourself through whatever devils, whatever pains that you go through.
You'll come on top at the end.
A particular case scenario is, me being a member of a gang at that time, and thank goodness I never harmed anybody, and nobody. I mean, if I was still there, I would have been killed. If I did not navigate my way to come into the UK, I would have been dead.
It would have been difficult.
Does that make sense? Because,
ladies and gents, welcome to the Wealth and Business Podcast. My name is Kevin. I'm the co-founder here at Property Wealth Education, and I'm also the host of today's episode. Now, this episode is all about Dr. Dan. Now, he's got a book coming out called The Test, right? And it's the most anticipated book of Dr. Daniel Moses that he's got coming out very, very, very soon. And what I wanted to do this episode is just interview him about, what made him write this book. Where did inspiration come from? Dig deep a little bit more about some of the personal stuff he mentioned in the book, because I personally read it and I actually can't wait for you guys out there to grab yourself a copy and read the book for yourself as well. There's so many nuggets, so many gems, and I thought, you know what, Dan, let's jump on the podcast and let's discuss and speak about where all of these nuggets came from, as I know you went deep on this one. So once again, it's a pleasure to have you on this podcast, and we're gonna go straight into it. And Dan, I know that previously, before, you wrote the book Rent Made Easy, which is a property book. It was an Amazon bestseller, and you're now got your second book coming on the way, which has got a massive hype at the minute. However, this book is slightly different to the first one, right? So the first one was all about property and business, but on this second one, The Test, you decided to kind of not make it too much about property, but make it more about your personal life, right? It's not autobiography, but it's more about you as an individual, you as a businessman, you as a entrepreneur. So tell us more about that. What made you not write another property book, but say, you know what, let me go into a little bit deeper about myself and share people, a little bit more about myself as an individual.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on the Wealth and Business Podcast, which is a podcast that you and I co-founded. I mean, just saying that again for those who are just listening to this podcast for the first time. The Wealth and Business Podcast has been around now for 2 years, and we've done amazing things here. We've interviewed some great guests, and the Wealth and Business Podcast is about to see a brand new whole lot of level of production, a brand new whole lot of level of the guests that we're looking to have on this podcast. So, first of all, about the book, The Test, the transitioning from the ordinary to the extraordinary. I decided to write that book because, looking back at 22 years of my journey of being an entrepreneur, I wanted to kind of share a lot of lessons that I learned from my personal life, a lot of things that I transitioned from as an ordinary person, into becoming an extraordinary person. And the beauty is about The Test is that a lot of entrepreneurs do not realize, in order to become successful in entrepreneurship, you will be tested.
Yeah.
And even in the Christendom and even in other religious, background, somehow we all go through tests in order to, give testimonies. So I'm a Christian, I go to church. In order for you to go and testify before the people of God and the church and to the congregation, you must have gone through a test in order for you to testify. It's just like when people give you testimonials. In order for people to give you testimonials, they would have had to use your product in order to share, the reason why anybody should use that product. So for The Test, it goes back all the way from the beginning of my entrepreneurship life, way back on how, I came into the United Kingdom. So I was bred in Nigeria. I've been in the UK now coming up to 20 years. And when I first decided to travel all the way from Nigeria to the UK, I had no brother, no mother, no sister. In fact, I had no siblings. I only knew 3 people, right? I only knew 3 people in England. And one of them was in Leeds, one was in Luton, one was in London. And what actually transpired that motivated me to live in Nigeria, I share in the book.
Yeah.
And that was, I'll give a little bit of just an insight in there. So way back, in Nigeria, I went to University of Benin, Edo State, Nigeria. And whilst I was in university, I literally sold anything sellable. I sold cars, I sold clothes, I sold used things. I sold everything sellable except drugs. And I always say this. So at a very young age, I was always a salesperson, and I sold anything. Through selling things in school, I became very known among my peers, in the entire university. I probably would say, 20 to 30% of people in my entire university knew who I am.
From you selling stuff.
From me selling stuff.
In the university.
So 20 to 30% of people knew my name in the whole of the university. So we're talking about university that had, hundreds of thousands of people.
Students.
20% to 30% knowing me by my name, and probably another 20% of the entire university knowing the guy that sells things in school in terms of cars, clothes, anything in the whole of the campus. But 30% directly had contact with myself. So, and that in itself, was good at a point in time, but it also came with its challenges. The challenges was I became a target for different rivalry groups, of gangs in campus.
Yeah.
So I, for those who are listening to this, they'll probably understand what I'm talking about.
Once the book is out. Yeah.
So once the book is out, probably be able to read about it a little bit more. So I spoke about, the challenges I encountered in that at a point where my life became at risk, and as well as bowing to pressure, and became a gang member, at that time. So I spoke in great detail. What did I learn? What did I learn from that as being an entrepreneur? What did I do to make sure I wasn't killed?
Yeah.
To make sure I did what I had to do to be who I am today. So I shared that in that book. Now, arriving here in the United Kingdom, I used the word escape from Nigeria into the UK. I got here in the United Kingdom. Arriving here in the UK, where I knew nobody, the weather wasn't that friendly, because I've never seen that level of cold in my life. In Nigeria, you're talking about 30, 40 degrees every single day, heat. And the only thing that we have from heat is rain. So we have the raining season. And then we have the sun. We have sun. We have the sunny season, and we have Harmattan. So Harmattan is when, usually you have the cold. They have the dry air and just dries up your skin, your lips, and all of these things. So we had that in Nigeria.
Wow.
So we didn't have winter at all. And before that, I never ever traveled outside
of Nigeria.
Yeah. In fact, I only traveled maybe once in a while from where I was born and bred, Edo State. To the northern part of Nigeria, and somehow to the western part of Nigeria. That's just about it. So I went to the north, I went to the south, and that was just about it. So apart from that, I never really traveled out. So for me, coming to a whole lot of brand new country, no brother, no sister, no auntie, and those shocks that I experienced while I returned here, what did I learn from it as an entrepreneur? Because remember, I was selling things. I was already making money. And how I was able to make the right choices and the wrong choices at the same time. So I share some great details and examples in the book. Now, arriving in the United Kingdom 2 years later, again started buying things and selling things.
Because that's what you need.
Because that's what I was
your experience. Yeah.
So again, buying things and selling things, and very quickly, from buying things and selling things, establishing myself after doing all the different types of odd jobs to stabilize myself as well. I shared that in the book.
Yeah.
I also then go into how meeting my wife in a bus and taking the risk of getting married to my wife within 6 months.
Yeah, I was gonna say that for me, when I met you, that was a couple of years ago, and you told me how you met your wife, and you like to say you moved to. He says I moved to her on the bus, so that's what he says. And I'm like, what? You done that in 6 months? And I'm like, wow, like how can you meet someone and you just know what you want and you just go out there and chase it. And I think one characteristic which you talk about in the book is just knowing what you want and pushing through whatever pain you have to get what you want. Does it make sense? So that chapter there was really made sense, and I can see that characteristics in terms of how we could take anybody from where they are to where they want to go. So
absolutely,
push through your pain.
Yeah, and that's just me talking about the early part of the book.
Yes.
And actually, the chapter number 1 of the book is called "Push Through Your Pain."
Push through your pain.
Right? And the reason why I started the chapter with pushing through your pain is a lot of entrepreneurs don't actually understand the pain they go through to becoming an established entrepreneur. You see, everybody wants to focus on the
positive,
on the positive side,
good feelings,
and the good feelings in business, but not actually understanding they're going through pain to becoming the greatest version of themselves as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
If you are buying something and you're selling it, what we think about as an entrepreneur is profit. If you are providing a service, all you're thinking about when you provide a service is, okay, your service is good, people are going to come and use your service, and at the end of the day, right, you're happy when the profit comes in. But the process where you're baking that idea, when you're nurturing that idea before it becomes a polished service for it to be used, there are pains that you go through as a living being.
Yeah.
That you have to enjoy to understand, well, actually, there is, at this end of this process, there is an excitement, there is a winning on the other side.
So they said there's light at the end of the tunnel. So you're going to go through the dark times, painful times, and then you go to the light.
Yes.
Which in your book, you've been able to not take it to just where you started as an Uber driver, but you went back from Nigeria, back to 22 years, back, when you was in university, and also when you also made, when you had a successful business in Nigeria as well, and how you lost that as well. And that is, I'm excited for the individual story.
Yeah, I went through that because, you see, I've come to the realization, having been an entrepreneur for about 22 years, and I looked backwards, and a lot of people ask me, especially over the last couple of years, I've raised at least 1.5 million in pounds to basically rebuild myself, rebuild my business. I lost everything back in 2015. And after losing everything that I ever had, becoming an Amazon driver, and also becoming an Uber driver, and then transitioning into property. So I basically went backwards to the point where I'm like, wow, it all makes sense how I'm pushing through to building the right brand, how I'm pushing through to changing my environment, how I'm pushing through to become the greatest version of myself that inspires others. You see, entrepreneurship is a journey.
100%.
And when people make the choices to becoming entrepreneurs, what they forget is that they're going to pass through those dark days.
100%.
They're going to pass through the days where they don't want to get out of bed.
Anxiety,
and it's normal.
Depression, 100%.
And it's normal. So if I knew that those things were normal, that I will feel low, I will feel maybe depressed, I will feel anxiety, I'll have anxiety. If I knew those, and I studied it really well, or even if I saw someone who was a bit closer to me, who was doing, who could share these things with myself,
your journey would have been much more
my journey
streamlined.
I would have been, trust me, I would have been 10 times more successful than I am today. But when I went through them, I didn't understand it. Are you thinking about building your wealth? Are you thinking about where to start, or not knowing where to start in your wealth creation journey? At Property Wealth Education, we teach people how to get started, how to build an empire, and how to invest passively and actively using property in your wealth creation. month in, month out, week in, week out, we have curated courses that is available to you, free and paid, and through our upgraded mentorship program, the Wealth Circle. So if you're thinking of building your wealth, we want to invite you to click on the link below the show notes on this video to book a call with us. We'd like to have a chat to help you start to build your wealth and build a legacy for yourself and your family.
100%. Would you say that that's one of the reasons why, you know, you was inspired to write this book and really go deep about your personal life? Because as you know, within Property Wealth Education, we do speak to a lot of individuals, especially from you know, our community, right? And you know, we do have a lot of conversations where we notice that a lot of these individuals are going through pain. A lot of individuals are, you know, going through certain struggles, XYZ. And, you know, we're a source of, you know, the community that we have here at Wealth Circle and Property Wealth Education. We're all about inspiring, motivating people and letting them know that, listen, where you are now is not where your end goal. So would you say, you know, that is part of some of the reasons why you say, you know what, let me help people more by telling them about my journey? Because everyone at the moment, maybe on social media, is just seeing, you know, Forbes Council Coach member, Amazon bestseller. They're just seeing success, but they don't really know that before you even got to that stage, you went through massive challenges and the test. So would you say, you know, these are some of the things that inspired you in terms of having people come to you and looking at you for inspiration and be like, how's this guy been able to do all of this? Like, I want to know more. Does that make sense?
A lot of things that has allowed me to write this book. Actually, this book's taking me about a year again. Right? Initially, it wasn't gonna take me this long, but it took me anyway, because I keep going back.
You was holding back because you obviously when it comes to building a brand, I remember you was telling me this. You know, you want to let out everything, right? And there was some very, very deep personal stuff that you was looking to let out. And you know, we was in the, you know, when you was telling me, you was at the mind of like, is this time yet? Is it time yet? Is it too much? Is this gonna ruin my brand? Are people gonna, you know, XYZ? So you was battling for a long time, but then you said, you know what? Because the people need to hear this. The people need to read this.
Because the truth is that, right? I learned, so like I said, in way back before I came to the United Kingdom, right? Like I said, selling anything and joining gangs to protect myself, which I thought I was gonna be protecting my life. So right now, I'm selling things. Sometimes people, because in Africa everything is jungle justice. At the time I was growing up, Nigeria is a lot of jungle justice. So when, for
those who don't know that, do you just want to explain what
jungle justice means? That sometimes you just gotta take the law into your own hands and fight for what belongs to you. That's what that means. So if you owe me money in Nigeria, I'm gonna go to the policeman to tell the policeman, okay, Kevin owes me money, he's not paying me the money, here is the paperwork. If you have an uncle that is well connected, honestly,
go to uncle.
The uncle comes in and say, okay, what next? He's not going to pay the money and nothing is going to happen. If you have a land, if you have a property, somebody can come from nowhere and actually take that property from you and say, wow. And sometimes people are put into a place where they have to take the laws into their own hands, fight and defend for, you know, what's theirs. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I remember way back in those days when I was selling cars and selling clothes and selling things in school, there were times where I sold air conditions because obviously Nigeria is quite hot. Yeah. So I sold air condition to this particular guy. You know, I sold an air condition to this particular guy. And when I sold this air condition to this particular guy, this was about, I sold the air condition for like 25,000 naira. 25,000 naira is less than 20 pounds.
For air conditioner?
For air conditioner. It's used.
Oh, okay. So
obviously the naira to the pound is quite heavy. So anyway, I sold that condition for 25,000 naira. So the guy came through, paid me 5,000 naira, and then the balance is about 20,000 naira. 20,000 naira. And he said, okay, I'll pay you the following month.
And you've given him the product.
And I've given him the product.
Okay.
Now he's using my air condition. I'm checking him out. What's up? And he said to me, listen, if you come back and chase me this money, I will slap you. And bro, when they say I will slap you, it's not small. It's not for small children. It's not for small children. And actually, I was beaten many times. There were times where, you know, I remember I was dating this girl. Elizabeth
So
way
given
back,
that,
and she might be listening to this and she can actually attest to this. I was
just
dating this girl called Elizabeth way back in university. And I remember picking her up she was studying law and I was studying sociology. I remember going to pick her up because I had a good car. I remember actually, being slapped, a hot one, like big slap in my
a hot one,
a hot slap.
must have burned.
And these were the things that eventually I had no choice. I'm like, listen,
defend
I've
for
got
yourself,
to defend myself. And I
Mm.
became a member of a gang.
Mm.
So people couldn't do that to me.
Mm.
But that was one step. So become a member of a gang so that people can't just come and slap me. Because if you then slap me, there's going to be war on campus now.
And you had no other way to, protect your
myself.
bit.
No,
not even yourself, but you had a little business going on.
I had no,
and I guess
had
back
no other
then,
way to protect myself.
Mm.
I had no other way to protect my business. I had no other way to protect even the girl I was dating. And I had no other ways. Again, not just that. I became, at some point, I was very popular. I mean, when in Nigeria at that time, being in school in campus, when you're a trading guy, you got money everywhere. Women
attention comes to you, of course,
women all over you, and that was a big problem in itself. So at the end of the day, what did I learn as an entrepreneur? And that's why I go deep into all these different cases in my life.
Yeah.
I even went as far as sharing, a particular scenario where I met someone. I came into the UK, I think within the first 3 years of my life in the UK, where I also met an individual who got me into legal troubles.
Yeah.
And when I went into those legal troubles, I had to leave the country. I had to leave the UK.
I remember. Yeah.
I had to leave the UK for a whole year where I couldn't come back to this country. I couldn't come back into the country. At this time I had a son. My marriage was barely less than 3 years old. And leaving my wife alone, not being able to come back in this country, what did I learn as an entrepreneur? Let me give you another instance. I left the country. I got back to Nigeria. At some point, a gun was put to my chest. Right there.
Yeah.
Right there in my chest. And I had to negotiate my life not being killed. Because at that time, the only two things came to my mind. Could this be the same guys who I ran away from way back years before that time that was trying to kill me? Or was it just a robbery case? But eventually it turned out being that they were robbers.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Wrong place, wrong time.
So at the end of the day, right, what you go through as an entrepreneur, because for me, that's all I ever did. Yes, I was going to school, but I was just somebody who's always was selling things, selling clothes, selling cars. I mean, I don't sell things that much now, apart from the fact that I've got programs that uplift people and stuff like this. So I basically, on chapter number 1 and chapter number 2, basically narrated those challenges and how I always came out with a solution, how I always, because one of the things as entrepreneurs, we have to learn, when you're faced with difficult, challenges in life, sometimes you could be influenced by the wrong things, and sometimes you can be influenced by the right things. How do you use that to navigate your life? So, like I said, situation whereby I had met this guy who got me into a legal challenge that that almost ruined my marriage, ruined my businesses, ruined my life, ruined everything. So I touched a little bit on that as well. So I mean, this book is basically sharing the challenges of my life.
Yes.
That has given me such a thick skin. All right.
That also now
to fight for success.
Exactly.
And to be the greatest vision of myself.
That's it. So initially, all the struggles, the pains you went through, you now see those as a lesson, and you've broken down exactly what the lesson is and how the lesson has helped you. And now the doing business and in the business world. Now, one thing that when I was reading the book, I really like the way you structured it, and I think it's going to be one of the easiest, or it's going to be a very easy book to read in terms of the structure which you've written in, which is, you've got the story, you've got the issue, the challenge, and then you've got the lessons, and then you've got practical steps as well. So you've written it in such a way where, you talk about the story, there's the storyline, there's the issue, there's the problem that you face, and then boom, after that you break down, okay, what was learned, what was different, and how have you used those lessons to really amplify, and how can someone else do it as well. So I really like the way you gave the solution. You spoke about the problem, and then you also broke down what the solution is, and also telling people how they can go about doing the solution as well. What made you write the book in that manner and not just write like a typical, autobiography where you're just talking about yourself and then that's it? You're actually giving practical steps and practical breakdown of each test that you had, and these tests most people can relate to. And so you talk about the challenges you had within your marriage, within the business, all these steps. Some people may be facing that as well, but you give practical steps.
I actually
What
even
made
wrote,
you write
I
the
actually
book
ev-
like that?
I actually even write to a point where I quit, literally quitted as being an entrepreneur. So I just said, you know what, let me go and be normal. Let me just go and get a job and which was at, the time where I actually became an Uber driver.
Yeah.
I quit and started driving, doing delivery job for Amazon, and then eventually driving for Uber for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I wrote the book and I broke it down in those steps, as you mentioned, is that a lot of people want to become successful, but often life gets in the way.
All the time, yeah.
Every single person wants to be successful entrepreneur, and they're going to go through challenges in their personal life, and they're going to abandon the actual purpose of their existence, of that gift that God put inside of them. So for example, when I was selling cars and selling clothes and selling all these different things in Nigeria, and for some reason I ended up becoming a member of a gang at that time and relocating to the United Kingdom. I could have gotten here, and I could have, because of the experience of what led me to be a member of a gang, that alone in itself could have said, oh, no. Focus on everything that went wrong and stop. Now, when I go into the UK, now I have no papers, like no legal background, not quite legitimate like that to work, and to do what other people should do,
on a day-to-day,
on a day-to-day basis. Now, doing all different odd jobs to survive, sleeping on the floor, all right, sleeping on the floor and all of that. Like I said, I had small businesses that was going off me already in Nigeria. Now, what did I learn from that? And how did that continue to help me? That even within the next a year or two, I raised enough money through whatever that was that I was selling, and also even helping people load their vans.
I was going to say
Peckham.
that
I'm coming. And as well as spraying perfumes, a job called
Pecker in the toilet.
in the toilet, saving all those money, and
nightclub.
then started breaking cars into spare parts and shipping them over to Nigeria. Like I said, a lot of things was in front of me that could have stopped me from being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I was going to say, where does that come from? Because that transition from, being in Nigeria, you're making money, you say you had ladies onto you at the university, you was doing okay, but unfortunately, because you was doing okay, people started to envy, and therefore you had to find a way to protect yourself. Now, going from that to, selling air conditioning, making money, having cars, XYZ, to now leaving all of that and coming to a land where you know nobody. You don't even know where to start from.
Even when I speak, people didn't understand.
Yeah, so that transition there, like that mindset shift, some people would not be able to go through that pain or through that transition and come out the way that you've come out. So, kudos to you on that. And what I want to ask you is, like, what is it did you have within you to keep pushing through? And not actually saying, you know what, this is what I know. Let me go back, because there's one saying that I heard, or there's one individual that I met, and he said, he lives here, but his mind, and he lives in London, but he's in Lagos. Does that make sense? As in, he lives in London, but the way he's operating is as if he's still back in Africa. He didn't change how he operated. He just acted how he used to act in Lagos, but in the UK. But for you, you adapted new habits. You got yourself to a stage where you said, you know what, I can't be the same guy that I was back there. I need to transition. And where did that come from in terms of having that drive and that passion? It's like, did you know what you want out of life? Did you know what you wanted?
This is the reason why I said the transition of the ordinary to the extraordinary, because that means a lot to me. I think it's important for individuals, regardless whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a worker, wherever you are, it's important to transition. If you're not growing, you're dying.
You're dying, yeah. We already say that.
You know, if you're not growing as a human being, you're dying. If you're not improving every single day, if you're not every single day in your life, if you're not using what surrounds you and learn from what surrounds you every single day, you're literally dead. So for me, I also live by this word. They say you can force a horse to the stream and you can't force a drink, right? And there's also another saying, again, I'm just going to use two sayings and sayings to keep explaining what I'm trying to say. Sometimes they said you can take the man out of the bush, but you cannot take the bush out of the man. What does this mean? Sometimes people don't actually understand their true purpose. So for me, I think being raised well by my mother, being really, really raised well by my mother, I always knew inside of me that I've got more. I always knew that I have to make my mother proud. So regardless of any situation that I find myself, I've got to make my mother proud. I've got to be more. And for some reason, I think looking back 22 years, I did not know that I have always had some sense and level of clarity. Right? I did not know. But looking back, and this is why I wrote the test, because without no test, there is no testimonial. Testimonial. And I'm very clear on where I'm going to. Right? And I'm very clear. And I've also come to realize that in order to get to where I need to go to, there will be struggles, there will be pain, and it's okay.
You've got to let go of something to where you want to get to.
You understand? Yeah. There will be struggles, there will be pain. Life will get into your way, and it's okay. With what I've spoken about in the test, of which the test has a second version, which will be released in 2024.
Yes.
All right.
That one there, we can't even talk about that one there yet.
And this is a big, it's massive. So big.
It's massive.
So for me, the reason why I'm saying everything I'm saying right now is listen, no matter where you are, no matter what's making you not have momentum right now, whatever there's not, working for you, it's okay.
Yeah.
Push through. Dig deeper. Keep digging. Dig deeper. Keep pushing. Push through it. You see, when we celebrate Easter, I always feel very emotional ever since I became a Christian, especially over the last 5 years. And there was a day I was watching how Jesus Christ was killed. The brutality. And I'm literally weeping in tears. And the Holy Spirit then said to me, and same thing, if you want to be great, sometimes, yes, it could be handed to you on a platter of gold. Yes, it does. There are people who have become successful on a platter of gold. My father was never a wealthy person. My father never wrote a book. My father never had a podcast. There's so many things my father has never done. Right? So for my father, who's not done anything and paved the way for me, so if I needed to pave the way for myself, it's only normal, it's only neutral that I will have to push through those pains.
100%.
So the people who always got it handed over to them. So this is one of the reasons I'm working so hard.
They lose
for
it
my
quickly.
son.
Yeah, of course.
I'm working not about even losing it even quickly. I'm working hard, very hard, because going through what I've been through in my life, I don't want my son,
to go through
my daughter, to go through it. And because I don't want my kids to go through what I've been through in life, I'm working hard. So when my son comes to the point of reasoning, in his adult age, he's 15 now, I have done some great level of work. Because, bro, trust me, if you haven't got anyone backing you, it's hard.
It's hard and lonely as well.
Especially for someone like me, writing the test brought so many emotions to my mind. Writing the test, every time I think about writing the test,
you had to do a lot of, I've read it and looking at it, I'm like,
I don't like talking
Mm.
about it, because every time I talk about the test, I just
it's a reflection of like your life, what you've been through, you know, what's happened to you, and you've had to really reflect and meditate and go back and even realize within yourself, I've got these habits, or I am this type of way because of that experience. But one thing that you've been able to do is, you know, like I said, use that experience to navigate to how you are, where you are, to use that experience that you've been through to navigate, you know, to get all the success that you've got. And now, does it make sense?
Absolutely.
Because there's some lessons that you've gone through that some people will not go through, but those specific lessons were good for you to get to where you want to get to. Does that make sense? So, you know, you've been able to use that as fuel to get to where you are. And I think, you know, the test is an amazing story. You know, I thought you was looking to write another property book, but you said, Kev, you know what, I'm going deep on this one. I'm gonna,
it's a mindset. You have to
go
through the
release
mind.
a lot on
You see,
that
the
one.
mind is so big, you know, that sometimes we don't even understand the power of the mind. You know, sometimes in order for you to go to the next level of your life, you go let go everything from the past. I've been on this journey where I've transitioned from looking back every single day in my life. I look at my life every single day. You know, people pay me a lot of money to advise them now, right? People pay me a lot of money to coach them. People pay me a lot of money to work with me. And I'm grateful to the test, because without the test, I would not be the person I am now.
100%.
So for me, to go to the next level of where I want to go to, I needed to share what drives me, what pushes me. And looking into my life, I realized it's the test that's been pushing me. It's every single pain that I've been through in life that pushes me, that keep pushing me. How can I be the greatest version of myself to my son? How can I be the greatest version of myself for my daughter? What examples am I leaving
for them?
You know, and not just my immediate family as well. The other day, someone sent me a lengthy voice note on Instagram, and one of my assistants said, make sure you go and listen to that. And I listened to it. And this person is basically just saying, he says, Dan, there's something I really love about you. Your honesty, your transparency, you know, and you say A, B, and C, and D, and this literally transformed my life. And in the test, I also share going through anxiety and depression.
Yeah, I think you even broke down how you even had to take pills, antidepressant.
Yeah,
pills,
of course I was
to be able to sleep.
Yeah,
like you really went deep on that one. Yeah,
for 2
years,
years
a long time.
2 years I didn't sleep.
You spoke about, you know, you're suffering from heart palpitation. You know, you wasn't able to sleep. Even you said you was facing spiritual attacks. You know what I mean? So you really went deep on that one, and I think people will now really get to know, you know, the Daniel Moses. You know, Daniel Moses back from Nigeria, and not the Daniel Moses that we're seeing now in terms of the Forbes Culture Council. The real true Dr. Daniel Moses. You know, his story, your journey, and you know the pains and successes you've been through. And I think
I speak to a lot.
You've opened up a lot on this one.
Yeah, and I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs. And when I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, sometimes they want to take action. They want to better themselves, their life. Sometimes I speak to a lot of other people. Say, oh, I'm going through this. I'll give an example. Before lockdown, I had a business partner. All right, we were three of us.
I'm familiar.
Right,
yeah.
we were three of us, right?
Yeah.
And before lockdown, this particular business partner, you know, great guy, amazing, powerful guy. He's been in real estate for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And we formed a partnership. And just before lockdown, his business started to go through a lot of challenges. And this guy basically buried himself in the sand and
disappeared. Yeah.
And there were things we needed to do. He's not coming forward. And he's buried himself in the sand. And lockdown came through, and we had to both part ways in our business. Fingers crossed, I'm sure he's okay now.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, if there's something I've ever learned, I don't bury in anything I'm doing in my life. I never bury my head in the sand. I come to you, I explain my situation to you. I expect you to understand. If you don't understand, no problem. But at least I've said it, I've told you, and I've asked you to give me time. All right? Because I understand life is also about seasons.
Seasons and timing.
There's seasons, 100%. There's also timing. You know, sometimes, you know, when the winter is here, when the sun is going to come? When is the spring going to come? When is autumn?
It eventually comes.
Well, eventually comes the sun, you know? And so the test is going to be, you know, it's a book that I really know that it's going to make a lot of impact.
100%.
It's going to change a lot of people's perspective about their own lives to understand, listen, when you go through your test,
it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
When you go through those pain, it's okay.
It's like the snake, you're shedding off, you know, the skin. You're becoming a new version of yourself. You're learning. You're going through that pain, that challenges.
And sometimes people hold through those pains and not letting go of those pains, and it actually holds them back.
Yes.
So, like I said, for me, for the next level of success, the next level of my growth, I felt I needed to share my pains of the past so I can let it go
and create the new one.
So I can create new level of success. I mean, you've ever heard this. New level, new demons.
100%.
But it doesn't mean I'm not going to be tested again.
All the time.
But I'm going to be tested again. I'm going to share it. So the test is a continuous book.
Yeah.
Of sharing the fact that it's okay. New levels, new devil. But confront those devils. Don't run away from them.
Push through
them.
Push through your pain. Chapter 1.
Or navigate yourself through whatever devils, whatever pains that you go through.
You'll come on top at the end.
A particular case scenario is, you know, me being a member of a gang at that time, and thank goodness I never harmed anybody, and nobody. I mean, if I was still there, I would have been killed. If I did not navigate my way to come into the UK, I would have been dead.
It would have been difficult.
Does that make sense? Because how can you get an adaptation mindset? How can you move from one place that is not working to the next place, and without not quitting your ambitions?
That's it.
You know,
that's one thing. Before we wrap up, that's one thing I really like about the book, and it shows how you had to become aware, because some people are going through tests, are going through challenges, difficulties, and they're not aware that they're going through challenges. So you really break down, how to be aware of the challenges that you're facing and really reflect on them, for you to then take some sort of action and actually understand that, this is temporary. In due time, I will be okay. In due time, after I go through this challenge, life goes on. I'll become a better person, X, Y, Z. So, you've done a really good job in terms of breaking that down, in terms of, am I going through pain right now? Okay. How do you then navigate through that? And you've broken down really, really well in the test, the book. So tell the audience, the listeners, when can we expect it to come out? Obviously, I know the date, but I want it to come from you. What platform is it going to be available on? Tell them a little bit more about, the launch that we've got coming up as well. For those of you interested, you can definitely grab the ticket. Description will be the link for the ticket will be in the description somewhere below.
Yeah.
But just tell people, a little bit more about, when the book's coming out exactly, and when they can go.
So the book is available to be pre-launch from June the 9th. So Tuesday, June the 9th. So depending on when you're listening to this podcast, the book is available to pre-order. So you will find a link below the show notes of this episode. And as well as we will be doing a book signing on the 14th of July.
15th, I think. 14th or 15th of July, summer.
14th. Actually, I'll just check. Oh, it's my phone. You can check your calendar. So
it'll be in the show notes.
It'll be in the show notes anyway. So there's going to be, I think if I'm right, it's the 14th of July. So the 14th of July, we have our Wealth and Business Networking events.
Yeah.
So the book will be available for you guys to then bring into the event on that day.
Yeah.
So we can sign, we can marry, we can have fun together, and we just celebrate the test. And one of the things I want to leave with those of you who are watching this podcast, I want you to go through your test. I want you to push through your pain so you can then become an overcoming entrepreneur. So first, you need to push through your pain, go through your test, so you can become an overcoming entrepreneur. So whether you're just starting, whether you're already going through your test, and it's okay, because without testing, you cannot become an overcomer. And I just want to say, I just wanted to leave you guys with that. And I really hope, the test is going to make a lot of impact, in your
100%. It will. When you mention entrepreneurs, to be honest, when I read the few couple chapters, anybody could read that. You can be a professional, you can be, someone who is, just getting into the business world. You could be an established business owner. The test, is for everyone. So I look forward for the audience and the listeners to grab themselves a copy and listen to it. Your feedback means everything. So look out on the show notes, look out on social media. We're going to be promoting it heavily everywhere. Make sure you grab a copy for yourself and for your friends, and let's support Dr. Daniel Moses' new upcoming most anticipated book. It's going to be an Amazon bestseller as well. So make sure you grab your copy, and we look forward to catching you guys on the next episode. Make sure you grab your copy by clicking the link below. Thank you.